neither one of those heroes has been picked up yet.
Mm. It seems bans are not so much on the heroes that teams are necessarily going to first pick, but more on heroes that teams are worried about, like as maybe a second pick or third pick that catch you by surprise. Like the second pick for Alliance is where you get to like second pick something like an Ember, and then you can ban out some of the counters. So
you
that's
ban
where like it could be kind of tough.
Coddle versus Liquid. You've got Wisp versus Alliance, and Ad Finum. It was Ember Spirit versus Team Secret. Those kind of examples, very targeted bans. We are going to see Weaver Disruptor for Nip. That's kind of an interesting one.
Disruptor. Like, not by no means a counter to Slaughter, but can be. I mean, just a strong, solid supporter in general. Perhaps NIP looked at something in their games in the past that they felt was lacking in the support carry. Thought, all right, we need a bit more team fight. We like having some catch as well with the glimpse, and that's maybe just something they come up with that's a support that's going to work well for them.
Well, Alliance will get what's pretty coveted, I think, Slardar as a first pick and then turn it into a support alongside the Darkseer. We used to see these kind of combinations quite frequently with Darkseer. Darkseer Earth Spirit was a very common one, but right now everyone's loving running Slardar Darkseer as the aggro duo.
Yeah. This seems like all the rage right now, so we'll see what NIP's plan for dealing with this is. They've got the strong support and Disruptor at least. Weaver, potentially the carry for Era. I think in their series, the last series they played, it was one game played by Trixie and one game played by Era, or maybe even a couple games that Era played it, where he's kind of playing that safe lane carry that's kind of trying to create space for Koikva, who is the player that typically gets the farm priority when it comes to NIP, and he's the guy that NIP play around more than they play around Era.
Mm-hmm. Second set of bans here, Rubik and SF. I like those, unless Ninja's Pyjamas is going to be running SF themselves. Got to take it away from the Slardar duo, and then the Rubik is a really nice. It's a well-rounded support, works well against Weaver, but also sets up the support Slardar quite well. Meanwhile, Alliance will ban away that lone Druid. See if they ban away that other core hero that is pretty frequently picked up in the Ember Spirit, though I'm not sure if this Nip really puts that much priority in it. We saw it one game yesterday, or 2 days ago, rather.
Yeah, Koikva played at one of the games, was it, I think?
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll get banned out now by Alliance, so you're right on that. You asked me about the last series. I'm wondering, what's your thoughts as far as Alliance Nip? Do you think like either team comes in as favorite? Like, what do you kind of expect out of this matchup?
It's hard to tell, right? Did you think that... I was trying to decide whether or not Ninjas Pyjamas was that something special that they did versus Liquid, where they managed to push them to a game 3. Was there something that, this is a newer team? Did Liquid stumble in that series more than Ninjas Pyjamas prevailed? Because being able to push Liquid that far says, I think, really good things about your team. So I initially would have thought Alliance will take this pretty easily against Nip, but to be honest, after that performance in their first series for Nip, even if they lost, it gave me some hope for this lineup.
I definitely agree with that sentiment. It was something where after last game I was like, I was pretty wrong about that secret Ad Finum. Turns out it was pretty secret favored, and I was looking at like some of the Dota 2 lounge odds, and I was like, yeah, secret favored. Viewers seem to agree. This one was actually 51-49 in Alliance's favor. Like it's, I think, a pretty hard matchup to call based on both teams having like such a high variance in some of their performances, and not even just their results. Like some of the, like you say, the fact that NIP were able to take a game off Liquid. Yeah, they lose the series, but most people would have expected that to be a clean 2-0 based on Liquid's form and NIP trying to adjust to their new roster. So I think with how it stands right now, Alliance, I guess in my mind, were maybe slight favorites until I saw those NIP games, and now I'm thinking it's a bit closer.
Yeah, I think if maybe we were playing like 10 best of 3s or something, I would put my money pretty heavily on Alliance. They're the more experienced team. They played together quite a bit. I feel like that is definitely going to be a factor in this best of 3, but who knows? Maybe Ninjas Pyjamas just show up, and as you said, variance is definitely something that we're working with these two teams. We're not sure if Ninjas of Pyjamas can put in consistently strong performances. Alliance are going to go for the third pickup, Dazzle, after the Clockwork. So a little bit more physical damage minus armor, that whole deal. Also a lot of sustain with the Darkseer, presumably getting an early mech, and the Dazzle heals. So Ninjas of Pyjamas, with their single target focus here of the Weaver and the Clockwork, are actually going to find themselves pretty well thwarted in getting those quick kills.
Yeah, and a lot of Koikva's big heroes that could be a bit more explosive at banned. He ends up on a Queen of Pain, though. Let's say the Invoker would be the dream hero, but that's even first stage ban, the targeted ban from Alliance. Lone Druid and Ember, both heroes that Koikva's played as well, even though the Lone Druid's typically thought of kind of more as a safe lane NIP, one of the teams that will run it on Koikva in the mid lane. So they snag their mid lane, not even saving it to last pick. I think perhaps a bit worried that Alliance will also ban out the Queen of Pain because that mid pool is starting to dwindle down.
What about our carries here? Both Juro Ranger and Luna are still in the pool, and with this much physical damage and minus armor on the side of Alliance, and then Ninjas of Pyjamas also running a Weaver strategy, I feel like these two heroes, like the one or both of them, has got to be picked up on one of these two sides.
Well, I guess the alternative is for Alliance is you pair up, like get one of the Slaughter partners, like the Lifestealer.
Sure.
We've seen the PA before, but I think the Lifestealer is just the better, more conventional carry to go with it. But yeah, definitely looking for. I mean, they've got a mid as well as a safe lane pick left. Physical damage is what comes to mind. TA is the other hero that I think is going to be a good choice for Limp for the mid lane to take advantage. But for now, they pick up Jug, so not like an obvious Slaughter amp damage pattern. Obviously, there is physical damage, there's Omni Slash, but it's not like a conventional hero to pair with a Slaughter or a Darkseer.
I think that's part of the danger of the Weaver pickup, right? Is that Alliance don't necessarily want to commit to a Lifestealer Slardar. We've seen it matched up against the core Weaver before, but Weaver is a notable counter to the Lifestealer. So maybe that's part of the reason, like, is that we don't see some of these combinations. Same thing for Nip, right? Is that they can still commit to the Weaver, but simultaneously they can run a Draw Ranger strategy. But if there is a Lifestealer Slardar combination Alliance, they'd probably lose based on just the draft in that regard. So I think there's this Weaver pickup. Again, we talked about the versatility in the 1-2 drafting pool and how that adds so much depth to your lineup, and we see that advantage here for Nip. Alliance have already locked down, most likely, the Slardar into a support role. Nip still have those options to be able to work with.
Ban out the Terrorblade, so worried about a potential mid-Juggernaut.
Yeah.
Which used to be all the rage, perhaps. I mean, Juggernaut's just a hero you just don't quite see as much. Whenever it doesn't really feel like there's any main reason for it. Like, whenever I see the Juggernaut, I'm like, oh yeah, it seems still pretty decently strong, but it's more that there's preferred, more flavor mid-heroes these days, and same for the kind of the carry role.
Depending on Alliance's last pick, of course, but are you feeling, based on the 4 of Alliance so far, a little bit more Weaver core centered, or do you like the support?
Ooh, this game, I'm liking more the either the support or the offlane. Perhaps we see that 4-position Clockwork for Cinderin. He played that the other day, so maybe we see Trixie on the Weaver. To me, it's a hero where he's able to be very chaotic and put a lot of pressure on that offlane. He likes to play super aggressive. And here's a hero going to talk about Chaos Knight. This is like comfort pick all over for Loda.
Loda's been trying to make this hero work for so many patches. I think like every patch he'll pick up a Chaos Knight once in an official game and see if it actually works. But Chaos Knight has received multiple buffs. We did see Alliance ban away the Juro Ranger, which leaves Nip a switcheroo here. They're going to go for, I guess, a safe lane Alchemist here, unless this is some sort of weird off-lane Queen of Pain.
Yeah, man, every time I feel like I see the safe lane Alchemist, it seems to let me down. Other than the one exception being the game where I think it was OG did it at the Dota Pit final, where they picked the Alchemist, and EG's like, we got you. They try and counterpick it with an Ursa, and then they just run it in the safe lane to try and dodge that matchup. But most teams I've seen run the safe lane Alchemist, I feel like it's like well below 50% win rate. Like I'm just not a fan of this hero running the safe lane.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the only time you should be running safe lane Alchemist is if you're dodging a really bad mid matchup like OG did here. So I mean, there is still that possibility, right? Safe lane Weaver, mid Alchemist, off lane Queen of Pain, and the support Clockwork. Of course, that would be changing everybody's role to something that is not the standard. So, yeah, Era's still going to be picking up the Queen of Pain. Who knows? Maybe we can have a safe lane Queen of Pain against the Darkseer. Actually, that's probably the better matchup, right? Queen of Pain versus a Darkseer lineup rather than Alchemist.
No, that makes total sense, and even the Slider's presence down there doesn't really threaten to kill the Queen of Pain as long as you keep your blink up and don't let that Slider get too close for like a crush when you're low HP. Like, that Queen of Pain should do all right down bottom, has stacked up a decent chunk of regen, so quite liking this NIP laning setup. The Weaver Clockwork up top can be very disruptive, put a lot of pressure on Alliance, which means their supports are likely going to be kept busy, and that's exactly what Alchemist wants to hear. He wants to have very little pressure coming his way in that mid lane.
Yeah, so we'll see how this aggro tri-lane scenario works for Ninjas of Pyjamas as they run the Weaver into the Chaos Knight, knowing that he's only got the backup of the Dazzle and not actually a full tri-lane necessarily. Koifu's still chilling out here in the lower half of the map, so maybe they're waiting on the lanes being determined.
He goes Alliance with a smoke. They've preemptively Iron Shelled Handskin and Loader. 2 Iron Shells already out, but that smoke's going to pop. Trixie, well positioned. Yeah, we talked about the other day, Alliance, one of the scarier teams to verse at level 1. But Koifu knew this was coming. He preemptively went to the bottom bounty ring, or at least had a good idea it's coming. He didn't even try and go for that bounty ring.
Yeah, I think that's the first time we've seen that, and it's not surprising. Alliance innovating level 1 strategies, the double ion shell and late smoke directly into the bounty rune rather than the smoke into get the wards out or get the positioning. Koifu is going to go into this matchup against Limp as we expected. Disruptor is going to try and babysit out Era in that bottom lane. Though Jonas Amfon with the early Iron Talon pickup is actually going to be jungling, and Hunskin will start out against the tri-lane of Ninjas in Pyjamas, or sorry, aggro dual lane.
Interesting choice by the Darkseer. I probably could have got a level 2, but there's always that chance with Disruptor, Queen of Pain, Thunderstrike, Shadow Strike could potentially be a killing duo at level 1, and if you don't get that level 2, you're going to struggle, and end of the day, you're going to farm just as fast, if not a little bit faster in this jungle, although I say that he misses a stack, but not the end of the world for him. He just doesn't want to mess around with this scary dual lane down bottom from NIP.
Yeah, even with the level 2 and the Surge, it's going to be a difficult lane for him, right? I mean, you've got a Disruptor who's a very good holding hero against Darkseer, both Kinetic Field against the Surge as well as the Glimpse.
Yeah, and now that you've given them their level 2s, or they're about to be level 2 in Disruptor, I think the more levels on this Disruptor, the harder this bottom lane gets. So more likely now, more so than at level 1, you definitely don't really want to go to that Jonas' shoes.
Sentries spammed out all over this lane, making sure they shut down the offlane Weaver. Now, the offlane Weaver has been something that's been picked up a number of times now, but I feel like every single time it's been picked up, it's done rather well in its laning phase and hasn't been shut down the way that Alliance is doing it here. So I think this is really going to put a true test to the offlane Weaver and its viability when it's met against a tougher laning phase.
Yeah, how is this Weaver going to get farm and XP this game, and how much of an impact can you have if you aren't getting farm and XP? Because most of those offlane Weavers we've seen Trixie play it one game, we've seen General do it, have had a much more successful laning stage than what we're seeing right now. But it's one of those annoying heroes because theoretically, you can actually roam pretty well as Weaver. You could roam on the mid lane or a bottom lane Darkseer, but level 3 with a single point in Swarm and 1 point in Shikuchi, you're a pretty effective roaming hero, which is where the 4 position Weaver came into favor. So he's actually picked up a TP scroll already, perhaps partly thinking about a rotation, but also just thinking about getting away from this constant support pressure.
And Cinderin's no longer at that top lane to help him out with the cogs that he was using. I think part of it is the fact that Alliance were abusing that cogs by being able to pull the hard camp. Instead, he's been trying to interrupt the Darkseer. Oh.
They found him for a second, now he's out again.
And TP away. He is too scared. Shikuchi, too long of a cooldown.
But, I guess the concern with NIP is that it's not just like their Weaver having a tough time. Because Weaver can't contest the lane, it means Synderen can't do anything in that lane. He's going to come down bottom now, but it feels like Synderen doesn't have a good home because that top lane is too tough with the tri lane. Ideally, you pick this Clockwork to be able to dual lane up top, but once that becomes unplayable, like where does the Clockwork go?
Yeah, Clockwork. Synderen a little bit late on the rotation there. Hani tries to set it up with a glimpse into the Clogs. Ideally, they do have a very good combination to keep this Darkseer out of lane, but Jonas Samfon, I'm not sure if this was a team read or him specifically with this early Iron Talon. It's actually done so much for him. He hasn't actually died. He's spending very little time in lane, and what he is, he's got the right ward to be able to scout the rotations. So all of this is adding up to a very strong alliance counter to what Ninjas of Pyjamas intended, which is kind of surprising, right? Because we weren't really expecting what NiP did with their laning phase, and we thought it was kind of interesting, but Alliance just very much ahead of the game here, saw it coming, and countered it.
It was interesting, and it made total sense. It felt like NIP had a good laning set, but what Alliance did, perhaps to basically beat the lanes, was by making sure they went top. Like, Hanskin has not left this top lane at all. He wanted to make sure they Weaver... By the Weaver not getting anything, it means the Clockwork's not getting anything, so it's two of these NIP early game pressure heroes that have been somewhat kind of stifled, and as a result, it feels like both Trixie and Synderen are just going to be playing catch-up a bit. Synderen's just kind of jungling it up a bit at bottom. They will catch vision of Jonas, and this could be the first blood.
Pulled back into the Cogs with the battery assault, and this is surely his death. They're going to try and TP in with Slardar to help save him, but that will be our first blood. Still, though, very respectable. What Jonas Samfon has done against this lane, the fact that he's only just now giving up that first kill at 5 minutes is quite impressive. So... decent done by him. I like that you talked about the early game pressure heroes and the way they're being shut down. It really just means that Alliance only have the Queen of Pain to contend with outside of the laning phase, right? Era's getting free farm, but if they can manage to keep him out as another early pressure hero going into that mid game, then they've got free reign potentially to shut down the Alchemist and get aggressive.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, they've given the Alchemist like a safe laning stage, but they can get aggressive elsewhere in a later time. Top lane, they're going for a bit of a big dive here on Trixie, and I think they've got it, even with the TP support.
A 3-second stun makes it pretty easy. Disruptor is here, so they can glimpse back Loda into this tier 1 tower. Now, he does get into the trees, where Hanskin's also sitting, so this is a little bit difficult. Doesn't get hit by the Cogs. Hanskin puts himself out there first, seeing if the NiP team will go on him, but they really want to get this Loda kill. Hanskin tries to close the distance, almost gets Era, doesn't quite hit him with that stun. They will hit him with a 2-second stun. Omni Slash bounces back over to Era, but Era managed to get the blink away. Fortunately, one of the Omni Slash bounces hits Synderen. Now Limp's going to be stuck. Oh, doesn't get stuck inside the kinetic field. That was so close. Shukuchi up in 2 seconds' time. They don't have the glimpse either, so they'll have to give up on those kills. But NiP, that was perfect. They countered that. A lot of big ultimates being used by Alliance and not really finding the kills they were hoping.
Yeah, the end result was really good for them. I feel like Alliance didn't actually... Like, they played that really well. They made sure they had the Jug rotating up there to help them. And unfortunately for them, they didn't get the right Omni Slash bounces. The way NIP played it was that the Omni Slash was always going to have a second hero next to it, even when they thought they got the stun on the Queen of Pain. There was one hero with the Queen of Pain in the trees to help tank at least one of the bounces, but very close to executing that dive from Alliance. And I think the other big... Perhaps, I don't know, it seems like a mistake to me. Loda, he went for this very early armlet recipe, so for like an efficiency thing, so he can buy it from the side shop. But if he has like treads or something there, I feel like he's a lot better off to dive that tower.
Yeah, or even just having some of the baser items of the armlet, like that Helm of Iron Will that he's picked up now. Trixie is going to be caught out here, but no crush, so... Again, he just TPs away. That's another offlaner who's managed to, even though he hasn't gotten what he wanted out of his lane, considering the amount of pressure that Alliance has put on him, is one death, which actually served as a catalyst for a big turnaround by NiP, has been pretty respectable. Honestly, I'm impressed on both sides here, from both Alliance and NiP. It seems like they put a lot of thought into their laning phase for this game 1.
Yeah, I've definitely been impressed by Trixie's play, how elusive he's been up against this tough lane, so... See if he can continue to get alive this lane. Jonas on the other end, very impressive as well. Level 8 already as a Darkseer. The jungle has served him well. See if the Lions can do much at top. They pop the Phantasm, but doesn't look like they'll be able to get this tower with this initial push. Possibly with the Limp Juggernaut rotating, and he's picked up a nice rune with a haste. But even so, I don't think this tower's going down.
Yeah, I think part of that was if Loda had gotten a little lucky and managed to get 2 Phantasms out of that, then that tower would have taken so much damage between the two of them tanking and dealing out damage that maybe he could have brought that tower a lot closer to that end damage. But it will still serve as a bit of a harbor here for Trixie, who's had to play this laning phase rather elusively and TP back to that tier 1 tower so many times. Koifa is farming this whole entire time, though. We haven't talked about him, but he's had a good laning phase.
And that's where that first dive going Nip's way is a really big problem, I think, for Alliance, because you're giving the Alchemist free. You're saying, we're not going to contest him because we're going to be a bit greedy with our Darkseer. He's jungling, and we can just win top and shut down the Weaver's impact and even limit what Clockwork can do. But by giving away some of that top lane advantage with that dive and then the entire time having Koifa free farm, I think they've got a problem to deal with. And Synderen tanks a smoke gank.
Oh, he gets the cogs. Limp. He didn't keep the close distance there. Limp. Haste room brought back into the kinetic field. Makes it out, though. Oh, that was a close one, but Hera's here to clean it up. So he TP'd in, blinks in, finishes up that kill. Nice and easy. It does create a lot of space for Yono Fun at bottom. Might be able to actually take that tower off of all those rotations, but still getting the kill on Limp, who was, I think he was clearly hunting for Era. He wanted to be able to make a kind of rotation to keep the Alchemist down, but doesn't even get a kill out of it.
It's weird because it's like he ran ahead solo, I guess, with the haste rune. He thinks he can just go for a solo kill, and if he doesn't find one, he can just run away. So in theory, it's like a pretty low risk play. It just so happened that Alliance were willing to commit all the resources to make sure they got the kill.
Hani, does he have another one? Nah, he decides against it. Doesn't have anybody who's going to TP rotate for him, so.
Doesn't seem like that was going to lead to all too much. But yeah, Koifa 2k gold already. Looking like we could be on track for a pretty decent sub 15-minute Radiance if he keeps going uncontested with his farm. That is a big problem because Alliance, as far as their lineup goes, I don't really feel like they're going to be able to like pressure enough as far as like taking early towers. I mean, they're trying to do so up top, but Weaver's constantly there. They're even rotating Era. He's gone for the early Veil, a build I like to see considering he's going to create space for the Alchemist as per usual with this NIP's player role set up, and he's going to always be there. Anytime Loda comes to try and push, Trixie's there with the Swarm, Era's happy to TP in, and Alliance yet to truly take a tower.
Yeah, I think Loda is probably expecting... They've probably played this Chaos Knight safe lane a number of times in scrims and stuff, and he's probably expecting by that second Phantasm to have been able to take that Tier 1 offlane tower by now. It seems like a very nice non-committal way to be able to pressure, but Nip seemed to be being able to step in front of these pushes time and time again, and Loda's not getting that big jump start and farm that you kind of need as a Chaos Knight, right? This is a carry that needs to play from ahead.
IP are ready and set up. They've got a Static Storm.
Pull back here. Kinetic Field. That'll land on Hanskin. He's definitely dead. Alliance throughout the healing ward to try and save him, but he's definitely a goner. Sonic Wave is still up, though, and they have the hookshot as well. They're going to be able to lock down Limp. They can get a lot of physical damage onto him, but again, there is that shallow grave from EGM, so they do not commit anything. Loda now comes forward with the Surge as well as the Ion Shell. Dances around that Kinetic Field. Tries to get the pullback onto Trixie, but can't quite manage it.
They TP, they rotate their entire team down here, and they're not finding kills. Koifa's still free farming away. They'll get a tower. This tower is already like 200, 300 HP, so it didn't really feel like NIP were ever going to invest too many resources to necessarily defend it. That smoke down bottom was like, hey, we've got Static Storm, let's smoke, get some kills. And once Alliance bring 5, NIP are happy just to scurry away. Look for a kill elsewhere. Hanskin almost going to go down to Era solo if he's not careful here. That's not Kanger and Queen of Pain.
Pull out of the cogs. They
Jungle.
get a 2-second stun on Trixie. Yono Fun. He's kind of stuck here. He has the bugs on him, so Hani can pull him back at any point in time. Yono Fun knows he's dead. I think he's just trying to buy time, hiding up in a hole.
Well, it's time for Quickfoot to farm, I guess. When I look around, I'm like, all right, what's he buying time for? Quickfoot. Farming away on the Alchemist. Oh wait, that's not his teammate. But yeah, I mean he wastes that IP, makes him work a bit harder for it. But yeah, Koifa is a big big issue. 3k net worth ahead of the Juggernaut. I mean, typically you do want to play Alchemist from ahead in that mid role, but this is definitely the signs of a very successful Alchemist game that's looking to hit a scary timing around the Radiance plus Manta Octarine, where Alliance are just not going to be able to keep up in terms of farm, and they're not going to be able to fight into him.
Which is why Alliance really needed this. I thought this rotation was going to be about entering that offlane jungle, but apparently it's about Roshan.
I mean, it's nice, but I don't even like. Let's say they get this uncontested. It's a lot of. It's going to take them some time to kill it. And if you're a Nip, you're playing keep away regardless. Like Aegis or no Aegis, like you don't really need. I mean, you actually got a pretty good team fight around the Static Storm and the hookshot initiation, but this Aegis isn't going to like suddenly mean Alliance can push towers. They push fairly slowly because of their lineup, and they're also getting scouted out. This is a disaster now.
Yeah, they
hookshot could punish this heavily.
Stop the attempt. They have two really good scouting heroes. They tried to do that slow Roshan against a Clockwork and against a Weaver with Swarm.
Yeah. Quake's keeping him now with his Radiant, so he can actually fight with his Armlet Chemical Rage.
Oh, this is going to get real nasty. If Nip can actually win a fight with an Alchemist this early on, it's going to be disastrous for Alliance. They start backing themselves away. The turnaround, they're going to go on to Koifa. Vacuum in with the wall over the top, but a really disruptive play from Cinder with the hookshot in on the cogs with the Static Storm over the top. Lim can't get anything off. No Omni Slash there. Jonas Fan has the surge, but can't even get it off with the constant battery assault ticks. So Alliance lose all 5 there with Roshan still with Corrosive Haze on it at 1500 HP. Nip will clean that one up pretty easily, and gods, I have to say, I'm feeling like Nip are just going to run away with the game now.
Yeah, I mean, you're 15 minutes in. It's you don't normally want to make those statements, but I totally agree. This is meant to be where Alliance is strong, like the early game, but that Roche was a very interesting call. I just don't even in my mind, like even if they get it, let's say Nip for whatever. I mean, I don't think scouting out the Roche, it was a really good read by Syndrome, but if they don't scout that Roche out and Alliance get it, I don't really feel like it necessarily changes the game or helps them all that much. Perhaps it gets them like a tier 1 tower, but Quake's still just going to be farming. But now that they lose 5 at that Roche pit because they're so vulnerable there to the hookshot and just the Alchemist acid spray being dumped on top of them, suddenly it's a terrible, terrible spot they're in. I don't know. This does feel like a very tough, almost impossible to win game now for Alliance. I'd have to get like consecutive smoke kills onto the Alchemist or something, and that sounds very difficult to do.
Yeah, seeing as they've struggled to do so in the laning phase, and they're probably running low on smokes at this point in time, considering the number they've already invested in. It does seem like a bit of an impossible task to shut out this Alchemist. So Alliance almost, at 16 minutes in, have to go for plan B against an Alchemist and try and maybe play the farm game and see if they can actually push this late enough where the Alchemist does begin to top out. But that's, you're thinking like 30 minutes into the future. Nip are going to have this gigantic window. It's going to be like an entire era of time where Nip are the dominant team on the map. They're taking your objectives.
Yeah, and typically Alchemist will be 6 slotted around like 26 to 30 minutes in, and this is definitely a game where that's going to be the case. And the great thing about this game is he's got 4 teammates who have great Ags upgrades. Every single teammate of his can benefit a lot from one. Corp's actually built her own, though. I think just wanting one as soon as possible, wanting to have the stats as well as the short cooldown, since NIP have kind of hit a timing now where they are way stronger than Alliance, can take any fight they want, can try and... It's so nice when you're playing Alchemist and you get this Radiance timing and you can actually fight. Often games you'll be like, well, I've got a good timing on my Radiance, but the opposing team's also doing well, so you've got to keep farming. This game, though, Alliance do not have any real items or heroes to try and fight into it.
Did you see this desperation play from Loda and EGM? They were trying to take some of that ancient stack, and they got a decent number of it, but Alchemist is going to see that, and he's going to be like, oh, well, I don't really care that much. It was going to be a decent source of farm for me, but ultimately I still have the rest of the map to work with.
Pretty much a non-issue. Like losing a few hundred gold to farm, and end of the day, Alliance are going to find farm somewhere on the map if they're not fighting you, so they take a bit of yours. No big deal for an Alchemist who is as far ahead as he is. More than double Loda's net worth. Quakefa is getting more and more out of control as time goes on. Boots of Travel, Manta Star will be complete in the next minute or two. It'll be all the standard Alchemist stuff. Though I guess the only real like difference in the output I ever see is sometimes you see like an early Blink Dagger. Like in these games where you're really far ahead, getting that early Blink can be really nice for your team to have an Initiator, but you've also got a Weaver and a Clockwork, 2 heroes that can easily get in close, so you don't necessarily need that Blink Dagger.
TP in, trying to protect, or sorry, that's Koifa's TP, actually. It's true, trying to ensure that offlane tower does fall. And they're going to push for 2 here. Alliance refusing to fight around this Aegis, continue to try and farm the other parts of the map. They want to finish up some key items like Hanskin's Blink.
Possible hook Static Storm on mid, although Limp is positioned around the creep wave, making it difficult.
The soft lane tower is just about to fall, but apparently Nip are not going to give it up without a fight. Trying to see if they can catch Alliance. Failing that, they can at least pick up the deny. They get a little bit of vision of Jonas and Fawn here.
They have Glimpse.
And the Glimpse. There it is. So they do successfully find that pickoff. Koifa is alone here in the jungle, but he's already TP'd away, so there's going to be no counterplay whatsoever for Alliance. Just more time to farm.
It's like one of those things where like they're just trying to play the farm game to try and drag it out a little bit, but they're never going to be able to farm at the same rate as NIP. Not just the Alchemist, but Queen of Pain is well ahead of them on net worth. They're slowly losing all their other towers, and Alk is not really worried about a late game Chaos Knight kind of turning this game around. This is 2 melee carries against an Alchemist. Alchemist is more worried about like the Terror Blades or the Shadow Fiend type carries who can kind of kite him around a bit and be hard to get on top of. Chaos Knight, Jug, this isn't really too big of an issue. If you're worried about the illusions, you can even go into like a Mjolnir type build. So, I mean, realistically, go back to what you said. This feels like a pretty straightforward game for NIP to run away with, assuming there's no major misplays.
We'll see plenty of time still for those misplays to occur on the side of Nip. It's 20 minutes in, 12-1, about a 12,500 gold lead for Nip, and about 5,000 experience too, and that's one of the worrying measures is when experience is also going against you. When you're facing that Alchemist lineup, it says a lot more about where the measure of this game is, considering Alchemist will always have a net worth lead over you.
Yeah. I'm not sure if things will be changing too soon for Alliance. They're trying to get what they can at the bottom side. Limp going for the farming option, the Maelstrom. I think knowing that NIP are likely going to try to go for that mid-tier 2 tower, that last outer tower, and then start taking the shrines, Alliance are just playing on the other side of the map, down bottom. They've left Loader top to try and get what farm he can, but they have no interest in fighting this NIP lineup right now.
Yeah, Nip are willing to lose their bottom tier 2 if that's what it takes to claim this mid lane. Mid lane will also be opening up shrines, as that's the last outer tower of Alliance. You take away those shrines, you start getting aggressive vision up, maybe even get a gem for yourself on the team to take away any vision that Alliance has, and the map starts getting real dark and real small for the Alliance boys. Well, Nip have
they don't even get the bottom tier 2. They're too scared, you know. Like This is one of the great things about the Disruptor pick is this hero plays so well from an advantageous position. It punishes split push really nicely. Most of the time you TP back and you can just like blink and run away, and make a big enough gap that you're not getting punished for split pushing, but Disrupt is one of those heroes that really punishes split push, at least from heroes who don't have magic immunity. Like the Juggernaut definitely can, the other heroes struggle, and Jug can't play for your TP away because there's a Clockwork, so even the Jug has to be careful about split pushing.
Do you get some vision of Koifa right now in their own jungle, but it doesn't look like they can do much with it. They don't have Phantasm. Loda was using that to farm and push out the top lane. That got quickly cleared out by Era with his early Aghanim Scepter, now working on a Eul's.
Koifa gets a bounty rune, then TPs to the shrine to pick up the other one and farm the jungle, doing all the efficiency plays, and off of that he's just short of the Octarine core. Assuming that's where he's going, could pick up an early Ag Scepter if he really wants to pull one to like a teammate, but I don't think there's any major Ags he needs.
I think the earliest Ags would probably be for Weaver when they push high ground, right? Because you've got so much focused single target damage on Alliance that saving grace of Aghanim Scepter relatively early on to the game would actually be pretty nice for when they push high ground. Obviously, the Octarine finish right now is more about completing that farm build and getting those later items.
And with a Clockwork Axe isn't that amazing because Alliance start fighting you. Like, who are you initiating on? He's not even using a single hook shot, so the shorter cooldown doesn't really matter when he's not finding any openings for it. Quap has hers. Disruptor Axe can be nice later on, but for now it's not really feeling like a necessity. There's not even BKBs on the Alliance side to try and use the Axe to counter.
Yeah, just imagine, like, if they actually farm to a point where they give that Aghanim Scepter to Trixie and then they go high ground with Koifa, how does Alliance actually fight? Limp's going to be caught. Beautiful setup there. That was nicely comboed. Hook straight into the Static Storm. No opportunity for Limp to get anything off.
Yeah, that's the combo I was looking for at mid, but he managed to position himself so they couldn't get hooked. But nicely done where they had Era hitting the Shriners, so it kind of made Limp probably think that they were fighting and playing around Koifa. The casual wall on the Alchemist. I love it.
Go farm, go farm.
Let's push out the lane with this. I mean, not a bad idea, if not for the fact that NIP is about to just break through your high ground. So suddenly you don't have Wall of Replica with this high ground defense.
Yeah, that looks a lot nastier. 15 seconds left on the Juggernaut. Nip looking to at least take this tier 3.
He thought they were going to go Roche first, and he's like, oh, they're going to go Roche. I can just throw my wall and it'll come off cooldown. But all of a sudden, it's like, wait a second, we have no Jug. They're going to take advantage of this. But as I say that, NMP will back off now with Jug respawning and fall back to take Roche.
Where's my gold per minute stat? There it is. 945 right now for Koifa's Alchemist.
Thoughts on where that's going to end up? It only gets higher, presumably. If the game drags too long, it drops a bit. But if they can end the game by like 30 to 35 minutes, it'll go up. Yeah,
because he only just now reached his peak, right? When he gets Manta, Boots, and Octarine is when you reach full farming potential for the Alchemist. So he only just now reached his peak. He should be able to eke that out a little bit further, especially with the finishing up those tier 3 and tier 3 towers as well as those Raxes. That's also just big piggy banks full of gold for Koifa.
Yep. We'll see where he goes next. Gets the armor item, which will help him against this. I mean, it's a lot of physical damage. It's almost all physical damage on the Alliance side. So definitely a game where you want to go Shivers or AC.
I think
slightly
AC.
prefer the Shivers just because of the synergy with the Octarine core, but it doesn't really make too much big a difference.
I think if it was a closer game, Shivas would probably be the better choice for Alchemist, but it looks like Era is already going, or has it queued up anyway, the Shivas on him. Yeah. And I think it's also in part like, we're planning on going high ground and ending this game soon, so that Midas armor might also be nice.
See, easy free tier 3 tower. The Aegis is on Era, but I mean, Koifa, he's got 3k HP. He's not too worried about dying here.
Loda does not have Phantasm. He used it at bottom lane. Take out that tier 2. It's already gone by the time the creeps hit for tier 3, so he's not even getting any base damage during all this and lacking a big team fight ultimate. They're going to be able to get the Eul Scepter straight into the Static Storm, hoping to be able to finish off Limp once again, but he does have the BKB. Now turns it around. Era caught in by a stun. That's going to be the Aegis down. Hanskin, though, locked inside the cogs against Cinderin, and Trixie will end up going down. That'll be a numbers advantage until a buyback comes in. A full 5-on-5 still going to ensue here. Loda goes on to Koifa. Minus armor is not going to be enough. Koifa still fight this one out, even against the spin of Limp. Another pushback there from Cinderin with the cogs, protecting Koifa while he hits on the melee racks. A beautiful sonic wave brings all of Alliance low, but they are working around the shrine, so they're going to get a decent amount of HP. Still not healthy enough to engage. A vacuum back, but Hanskin a little bit late there on the Blink Crush is not able to catch Era on their way out. Nip retreat, get the full lane of racks, and don't really lose anything for it, just dropping the Aegis.
Alliance did all they could, really. They landed their spells. The Jug had his BKB to get out of the Static Storm. There wasn't really anything to fault Alliance for in the high ground defense. It was just an IP way too far ahead. Alchemist is untouchable, and Era having the Aegis meant that he was kind of the more vulnerable target that Alliance go for, but Second Life is there, and, well, like it's even harder. They smoke up. They want to go fight. Koifa.
You got this fresh Shivas on Koifa if he wants to be able to slow him down. There it goes. Alliance now have the Phantasm with the 4-second stun. Maybe they can finally finish off Koifa with a jump in, hook shot, and Static Storm. That's going to lessen the damage, and a big blow by Era. Knocks out one. Limp is going to be a second one. Limp is just going to be gone on by Koifa and Trixie. They pull back Yonosampan as well. A third core going to fall here from Alliance, and they drop the GG call as well, meaning our Alchemist will end at about 1,000 gold per minute in a 28-minute game. Well played by Ninjas in Pyjamas.
Yeah, very well played. The last pick, Alchemist, was really good. You know, Alliance don't have good heroes to take objectively, so you're going to maintain full access to your jungle. It's losing those early towers where you suddenly become somewhat suffocated as an Alchemist, so it kind of took advantage of what Alliance's draft was going to do, where they're kind of more focused on winning the lanes a bit, but not winning the middle lane, which is where Alchemist didn't really get pressured. Even if he gets pressured, he can fall back to his own jungle, so it really felt like NIP had a very kind of planned strategy to kind of make this Alchemist pick work.
So Synderen and his